When you talk about learning and livelihoods, there are so many people out there who are always looking for employment-related opportunities. And while there are certain platforms and initiatives which have been trying to address that, but when you think of it from a user perspective, how do I get to know of the opportunities that may be relevant for me in my vicinity?
Hi everyone, welcome to the Intelligence Unscripted. Today my guest is Gaurav Gupta. Gaurav is the Chief Growth Officer at EkStep. EkStep does a number of AI initiatives, and Gaurav is going to tell us about a few of the very exciting ones that he's working on. Welcome.
Thank you, Bala. Thanks for having me. I've heard a lot about this show, so really happy to be on it.
My pleasure. And I always love flattery about my show, so please keep it coming.
Of course, by all means.
So would love to know what you do. And I know EkStep does a lot, but would be good to give us maybe a 1 minute overview of the pieces that you're looking at.
It's quite hard at times to figure out what do you do at EkStep by virtue of, there's so many things that we keep doing. But I'll speak a little bit about, what I do. So I am responsible for what we do in the context of education and skilling at EkStep, especially looking at our initiatives with the ministry and the ecosystem, which is involved around education and skilling. So as a part of it, working a lot with the ministry, the for-profits, not-for-profits, in terms of seeing how they can leverage digital public infrastructure to craft their own initiatives and stories in that context. Besides that, another thing that we started recently at EkStep is an open network for learning and livelihoods. It's called Honest Open Network for Education and Skilling Transformation. So think of it as the ONDC for learning and livelihoods. So that's the other initiative that I lead at EkStep.
Excellent. Would love to know more about it, specifically in the context of AI. How did you get started? What is a problem that you wanted to solve, and how do you think AI kind of solves it?
I think probably it's best demonstrated. Let me give it a shot. Let me give it a shot. All right.
Demo is always good.
Yeah. So I'm gonna pull out something.
That looks like a very big fat book. I hope I'm not going to have to read it right now.
In childhood, I've always measured books by the weight they had. How many pages do you think this has?
That's going to be a tough question. 200 pages?
It's actually 500 plus.
Okay, as you can see, I've not read books in a long time, but at least books like this.
And how long do you think it will take for you to read this?
I can probably read it, in a few days, but retention, I don't know if I'll be able to recall anything.
Right. No, that's bang on, Bala, because, by the way, I haven't read it. And if I were to read it, I'll probably take 3 months. So probably you are a very fast reader compared to me.
Completely overestimating my reading abilities, for sure.
But when you talk about retention, even if, let's say, I've read it very diligently over 3 months, if you ask me something on the back of this, I may struggle to probably even produce 50% of it. So that's really hard, right?
And what is this book about?
So this is, by the way, the National Curriculum Framework for the foundational stage. Now, the context behind this is that this was done on the back of the new education policy. And under the new education policy, of course, there is this intent towards seeing how learning can become more skill-based, right? And that's a very, very important initiative that the government of India has taken. To put something like this together, it is many, many experts who have poured their wisdom into this. Every single line written by them, it's worth its weight in gold, right? And while it has become fat, but this is the compendium for seeing that how you approach the curriculum in the context of foundational stage.
So who is this for? So students, teachers, who is supposed to read this book?
So ideally the teachers, but I think a lot of things that are written in this are also about what the parents should know.
Parents, okay.
Yeah. And see
who definitely will not have time to read.
No, of course, they cannot, right? And then moreover, if you look at it, this has been written in English. When you look at India, for example, as a market, India has people speaking at least 22 languages, and of course, many, many dialects and things like that. For them to be able to read it, retain it in their own local language, that's a big, big challenge. And why something like this is important? It is because, it talks about the importance of, for early age children who are in the age group of 3 to 8 years, to learn through play, right? Because that's how you learn during those years. And those years are the foundational years which have a big impact in terms of what you do later in life. And if you don't know this well as a teacher or a parent, you will not have any idea about how can I do certain activities with children which are playful for them, yet induce and build learning and hence skills amongst them, right? So that's the importance of something like this. By the way, this is one such example, right? If I were to ask you that there are 25 such types which are available covering. Right? Exactly my reaction. But it's gold, real gold, right, in terms of knowing what to do. So the key challenge, you spoke about, what's the AI-related challenge that you're dealing with? So point is, now something like this should ideally be in the hands of every teacher, every Anganwadi teacher, as well as every parent. They should know the essence of this so that they can do the right things with children and hence build their learning and in their own local language, right? Now, something like that cannot be solved even if you were to send a library of 25 books to every single teacher and parent in the country, because none of them will read it in that fashion, right? So the only way you can solve something like this is how can this knowledge be baked in a AI-based solution, which if put in the hands of the teacher or the parent, allows them to ask the question to that AI-based solution in their local language, and the wisdom of the experts can be then in their hands in that moment.
Okay.
Right.
So how does it work? Is there a demo that we can see?
Yeah, sure. There's a demo that I can show
Okay.
you about the same. Now, as the demo showed to you, there are simple activities that you can do with your kids, whether you're a teacher or a parent. What that entails is that, look, in my context, if I'm a parent at home, my child just came back from school, the child is not bothering me, but willing to engage with me, play with me. I don't have time for it. What do I do? So I simply ask this bot a question that, here's my child who's 5 years of age. I've got vegetables at home. Can I engage the child using vegetables, doing an activity that the child will enjoy and also learn some maths related content? And here's the solution which advises me beautifully, like you've seen in the demo, in terms of what I can do.
Instead of watching TV or staring on the phone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's the big deal. And NCRT is the organization which has put its might behind putting it all together, as well as rolling it out to all the teachers and parents across the country. And only time will tell that how this takes off and really enables them in their journey.
How long will it take for it to roll out?
So it's been already rolled out. The cycles of informing everyone about it and they making use of it, because it's a bit of a new habit.
Of course.
Right? It's not very obvious for, let's say, somebody in a village to be making use of it on the fly. So it requires a lot of, I would say, communication around the utility of this, as well as how you make use of it in the most simplistic fashion. And interestingly, NCRT has recently launched a program called Prompt of the Day. Right. And the idea is to make everyone aware that, look, here is a question that you should probably look at asking the bot today. Right, and do an activity with it.
It's always good because the cold start problem, otherwise people don't know what to ask. They just stare at the screen.
Exactly.
This is remarkable, honestly, and I hope teachers and definitely parents start using it. But maybe, Gaurav, we can just open the curtain a little bit and go behind the scenes. So first of all, is this technology sort of made in India? Are we using, and how do we prevent teachers from getting like random answers? Because, a chatbot can throw up anything. How do you make sure it's sticking to the syllabus?
No, that's a very, very important question, Bala, because I think there are enough and more things out there which may be distracting people vis-a-vis something which has been very carefully crafted in this context. In terms of behind the scenes, the aspects that came through in terms of making it happen, there were different actors who played a key role and different components of technology that got leveraged. So it uses, on one side, OpenAI, because it provides that LLM capability. But having said that, see, you're not here going to, let's say, the information that's on Google and referring to it. You're going behind the wisdom of experts, which has been very, very carefully put together by them. So it is hence trained on these 25 such fact books, like I spoke about. And it also leverages Bhashini, which is India's own digital public infrastructure, so that in your local language, you can ask it any kind of a question. This other aspect of how to ensure that it's not spitting out anything which may be useless. So experts were testing and helping configure the answers being provided by the bot over the period of like 3 or 4 months in terms of doing that, right? So they would basically ask it a bunch of questions. They will then check the responses. Then some responses will be rated well. Some responses will be rated as, not appropriate. And then you will continuously, train the bot and then configure it in a fashion that for a normal teacher or a parent on the ground, it gives them the right contextual answer based in the knowledge of the experts.
Fantastic. One of the things with AI right now is that the word trust, right? So if it starts throwing random answers and people will sort of, throw everything out and say this is all, nonsense, and then there'll be actually a setback. So it's important to sort of put those safeguards early on, even if it's a little bit slower, especially in the context of scale that we're talking about.
Yeah.
What is the scale we're talking about? How many schools are there? How many government schools are there? How many school children are there? What are we talking about in terms of?
So see, there are roughly 1.5 million schools in India. Almost an equal number of Anganwadis or the kindergarten centers also in India, right? So when you look at it, you're looking at some 10 odd million teachers in the country. Almost an equal number of Anganwadi workers in the country. Plus, to that, if you combine the parents, so kids in this age group of around 3 to 8 years would be around roughly 150 million odd kids. So as many parents. So you're talking about something which
Million kids.
Yeah, that's the scale that you're talking about. The parents of these many kids, or the teachers, or the Anganwadi workers of these many kids, in their own local language, should be able to make use of this because this is a smart assistant. How do they use it so that they can do something meaningful with the child? So, Bala, the trust-related aspect that you spoke about, it's actually very, very important. And one of the simple things that it does, which you might have seen in the demo, is that at the end of each answer that it provides, it points out the page number and the document from which it is taken.
Got it.
And because each of these documents have been put together by experts who are trusted by folks on the ground, it basically brings in that entire credibility and trust in terms of that I'm not getting something, random as advice. I'm getting very, very trusted advice.
So Gaurav, if we can shift gears, you've told us about this. This is incredible. I hope. We're talking about hundreds of millions of users. And for reference, ChatGPT has got 100 million users, right? And we're casually talking about 150 million students and, probably 150 or more million parents.
Yeah.
So this is something which is at scale and at EkStep proven that you can scale technology at that kind of levels. But tell us what else is cooking in the kitchen. Like give us a little preview.
Actually, there's lots, and especially let me talk about things in the context of honest, right? Because it's the open network around learning and livelihoods. See, the intent is to cook something which solves a real problem out there, right? And
like this one. This one is clearly a real problem. I mean, we're talking about this book, which is a big fat book, and 25 of those, forget it. Nobody's ever going to read it. Absolutely. And I can clearly see AI, especially this is all in English, in 22 languages, right? And all these people just going and picking selective information. Bot totally makes sense, and it's accurate. It's referenced back into the book.
Absolutely.
Perfect use case.
So likewise, if I were to take a few examples like that. So see, for example, when you talk about learning and livelihoods, there are so many people out there who are always looking for employment-related opportunities. And forget the, white collars. I'm talking blue collar, gray collar. And while there are certain platforms and initiatives which have been trying to address that, and they're doing a pretty good job at it, but when you think of it from a user perspective, from the perspective of a typical potential blue-collar worker seeking a job, how do I get to know of the opportunities that may be relevant for me in my vicinity? Today, there's no answer to it, right?
Like, what's an example?
Right. So let's say Actually, let me tell you a story in that context, and I think then this connect will become a little more powerful. There's a girl called Soumya. She's 18 years of age, lives in Kolar, which is next to Bangalore, right? She just completed her 12th grade, and she did it from the PUC board, right? And she got some 50-odd% marks in her 12th grade. Now, her family told her that, look, with these kind of marks, you'll not be able to do well in higher education. And, you'll also struggle to find a good enough job for yourself. And hence, the family kind of pushed her into becoming a maid in some of the nearby households, which basically changed her entire career trajectory, right? Now imagine, and this is a real scenario, in the vicinity of Soumya, in Kolar, there are quite a few smartphone manufacturing and EV manufacturing units that have come up. And guess what are they looking for? They're looking for girls or women who are 18 plus and just 12 pass. Now, Soumya could not figure out something like this as an opportunity, right? And if you add up the numbers, and if you look at just women in the 18 to 24, 25 kind of age group, you've got around 10 million such Soumyas or Sudarshans who are looking for something like this. But they don't know where is that next opportunity that I can apply to. And hence, the example that we are talking about is that, again, through a simple bot, in my own language, can I find a work opportunity which is in my vicinity? And I can do that in my own local language in terms of, asking it the questions. And like you saw it in this example, if there are so many different job providers, by them joining the network and Soumyas of the world being able to discover that in an easy fashion, that's one such use case that's kind of cooking and brewing in the kitchen in the context of honest.
So very nice. Just to make sure I understand. So on the one side, it's like a publisher consumer kind of a network. On the one side, there is job seekers putting out effectively their CV or a resume, bio in some sense. On the other side, the job providers put out what they're looking for. And this is kind of like a open version of LinkedIn, but using AI to discover, because Soumya might not know that, EV manufacturing, that like a specific jargon, right? But AI can match saying that, hey, you're looking for a job in this area, and is that kind of how it works?
No, so that's how it will work. It will work, right? That someone like Soumya, in a local language, asks the bot, what's a job opportunity in my vicinity? I am 18 plus, I've done so and so thing. The bot will point out, here are the options in your vicinity. And it's all happening through an open network. It's interesting that you also spoke about the aspect of my own profile, which is my academic credentials, my other achievements, and so on and so forth. So the other thing that we are also enabling in this context, which is another use case, again, of using some of the AI capabilities, is if I am so-and-so, can the bot also help create a digital resume for me?
Which I would not know how to create.
Because you may not know how to create, and using the best of templates and the formats, right? Which, if verified by somebody close by, now it again allows me to make an easy application also. Right, so the point there is that it's not just about Soumya discovering opportunities, but Soumya being also able to apply to opportunities. And the advantage it creates is that for a job provider on the other side, which may be a EV manufacturing unit, now not only can I discover Soumyas, because each one of them is actually struggling with that. They will be able to find Soumyas of the world and get their profiles, which are in a format that they can easily read with machines and do easy shortlisting versus eyeballing and going through everything which might be in a PDF.
So have you talked to the employers? Is there interest in something like this?
Oh, yes. I mean, see, each one of them, when you talk to the employers, they're like super excited. In fact, there are different nuances of the problems that we have uncovered. Just to speak about them, one, they say that if I'm especially a manufacturing unit, right, I'm always looking for people who already are there in the vicinity. And there is no way for me to broadcast my job opening, etc. Even if I do a good job of it, I may be able to saturate this in the 20, 30, 40 kilometer radius because word of mouth travels. But when you're looking at such a thing, I may be interested in getting people who are 100 kilometers from the place where I am in terms of the radius, 200 kilometers, or maybe people from the north and the northeast when I'm opening a facility over here. So it unlocks a massive ability for these guys also to be able to discover that there are these people and they can easily apply to such opportunities.
Fascinating. Makes a lot of sense, Gaurav. You've been very kind with your time. Thank you very much for coming to Intelligence Unscripted. I hope we can get you back on here again once you have launched some of these things, and we can talk about it some more.
No, absolutely, Bala. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me over. And the moment some of these stories, they become a reality, I would love to, talk about them.
Absolutely. Anytime.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.